What if the Bible isn't actually confusing, but just out of order in your mind? Because for a lot of people, the Bible feels scattered, like a collection of stories that don't fully connect. Different people, different places, different moments, and no clear thread tying it all together. But when you see it in order, when you see the timeline, everything changes. You start to realize this isn't random at all. It's one continuous story, moving somewhere on purpose. So in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the entire Bible, from the very beginning to the very end, in the exact order it happens. And as we go, I want to show you something else too. How this story doesn't just live in the past, it actually connects directly to right now. And if you're into content that helps you actually understand the Bible in a clear, modern way, make sure you subscribe, because that's exactly what we're building here. The timeline begins at creation. God creates the world, not as something chaotic, but something ordered, intentional, and good. And humanity is placed into it with purpose, with connection, and with responsibility. But almost immediately, something fractures. Adam and Eve choose independence, not because they're forced to, but because they want control. And that moment introduces something that still feels familiar today: the tension between doing things our way and trusting something bigger than ourselves. That tension hasn't gone anywhere. If anything, it's louder now than ever. From there, the timeline moves forward and things don't improve. Humanity spirals, violence increases, corruption spreads, and the world becomes unrecognizable. Until we reach Noah. Noah stands out, not because he's perfect, but because he listens in a world that doesn't. The flood becomes a reset moment, not the end of the story, but a restart. A reminder that even when things feel completely off track, the story isn't over. After Noah, the timeline shifts in a really important way. Instead of focusing on all of humanity, the story zooms in on one person, Abraham. And this is where the entire Bible really begins to take shape. God makes a promise to Abraham that through his family, somehow the entire world will be restored. But Abraham doesn't get a detailed plan. He doesn't see how it all works. He just moves forward, step by step. And that idea, moving forward without having everything figured out, is something people are still navigating right now. Faith in the Bible isn't about having all the answers. It's about continuing to move even when you don't. As Abraham's family grows, they eventually end up in Egypt, and over time, they become enslaved. That's where Moses enters the timeline. Moses leads the Israelites out of slavery in what becomes one of the most defining moments in the entire Bible, the Exodus. It's dramatic, it's powerful, but more than anything, it's symbolic. Because leaving Egypt isn't just about physical freedom, it's about becoming something new, and that process doesn't happen overnight. They spend years in the wilderness, not because they're lost, but because they're learning how to think differently, how to live differently, how to trust differently. And that's something people still experience today. You can leave one phase of life and still not feel fully settled in the next. Growth takes time. Eventually, they enter the promised land under Joshua. There are victories, progress, moments where everything feels like it's finally coming together. But then something interesting happens. A cycle begins. The people move forward, then drift, then face consequences, then return, and then repeat, over and over again. And that pattern, progress, drift, reset, is something you can still see in people's lives today. It's not just history, it's a reflection. Eventually, the people ask for a king. Saul becomes the first, but it's David who really defines this part of the timeline. David is one of the most relatable figures in the entire Bible. He's courageous, but he's also flawed. He has moments of incredible strength and moments of very real failure. And that's what makes his story resonate. It's not about perfection, it's about honesty. People don't connect with perfect stories, they connect with real ones. After David comes Solomon, his son. At first, everything reaches its peak: wisdom, wealth, influence. It feels like the story has finally stabilized. But slowly, things begin to drift again, and this time the consequences are bigger. Because after Solomon, the kingdom splits, and this is where the timeline starts to feel more complicated. Instead of one unified nation, you now have two, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. And both begin to decline. This is where the prophets step in. People like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel begin to speak into the chaos. They warn, they challenge, they call people back. But more importantly, they point forward. Because woven into their messages is a promise that someone is coming, someone who will restore what's been broken. And even in moments that feel uncertain or unstable, there's this underlying sense that the story isn't finished yet. Eventually, both kingdoms fall. Israel is conquered first, then Judah. The people are taken into exile, removed from everything familiar, their land, their structure, their identity. And for a moment, it feels like the story might be over. But it's not, because after years in exile, a remnant returns. They rebuild, they restart, they try again. And then something unexpected happens. The timeline goes quiet. For about 400 years, there are no major prophets, no major events recorded, just silence. And silence is something people still wrestle with. Moments where it feels like nothing is happening, where there's no clear direction, no clear movement. But silence doesn't mean the story has stopped. It often means something is building. And then, finally, the turning point arrives. Jesus enters the timeline, and everything changes. Because everything that started back in Genesis, the separation, the tension, the promise, all of it converges here, but not in the way people expected. Not through power or control, but through humility and sacrifice. Jesus steps directly into the problem itself. And through his life, his death, and his resurrection, he becomes the turning point of the entire story. And that idea, that real change doesn't always come through force, but through something deeper, that's still incredibly relevant right now. After Jesus, the story doesn't end, it expands. Through people like Peter and Paul, the message spreads beyond Israel and into the wider world. Different cultures, different places, different people. What started as one story becomes global, and even today that same message is still moving, through conversations, through communities, through people trying to make sense of it all. And finally, the timeline points forward one more time. Through the book of Revelation, we're given a vision, not just of endings, but of restoration. Because the Bible doesn't end where it started, with brokenness. It ends with renewal. Everything that was separated is brought back together. Everything that was lost is restored. And when you step back and look at the full timeline, you start to realize something. This isn't random. This isn't disconnected. It's one continuous story, moving from creation to separation to restoration. And when you see it that way, every part of it starts to make more sense. Not just then, but now.